Hi, I'm Alexia. I'm a graduate student at King's studying particle physics, and today I'm going to be interviewing the Dean of Faculty for NMES and the Vice Dean responsible for education students with your questions. So come with me.
I'm Professors Bearon. I'm the Executive Dean for the Faculty of Natural, Mathematical and Engineering Sciences, which means it's the 5 departments that you're probably familiar with: physics, maths, chemistry, informatics and engineering. My role is to provide overall leadership for the faculty.
And my name is Professors Banks, and I am the Vice Dean Education for the same faculty. And my role within the faculty is to oversee those aspects of what we do in relation to all matters education and student related.
What made you decide to go down these routes?
I had a fairly traditional path into academic life. I did my undergraduate studies in chemistry, and then I went on to do a PhD in chemistry as well, very much at the boundary between chemistry and physics. And then from there, following periods of research, I went into a position that was focused more on teaching and education. Spent quite a lot of time as Director of Education in a faculty in another university, and then came over to King's very recently.
So I'm also a very new hire. We both joined in January this year, and my route, quite similar starting off. I did a maths degree and maths PhD. I then had a slight detour when I went and did some postdoctoral work in a biological oceanography lab. So I did get some experience doing experiments, growing algae and filming them. And then I returned to the UK and went on a sort of academic path. So I was hired as a lecturer, and then I progressed through the kind of standard career route in academia. And most recently I was a head of a maths department at another university before I saw this job and this opportunity to be at King's, which was really exciting as a next step.
How would you describe your experience as a STEM student in one word?
Challenging.
Fascinating.
An emerging STEM field you're the most excited about?
So I'm going to say interdisciplinary science, which is kind of, it feels like the dean thing to say with this and so forth. But it chimes with my own research interests, which are very much at the interface between maths and health and maths and fundamental biology. And I'm also quite interested at the moment at how you can connect in with the more data and AI and machine learning, and how that interplays with all of that. So that's what I'm pretty excited about.
So you stole mine. Yeah, interdisciplinary science, absolutely. Got a lot of passion for that at the moment. If I had to pick something a little bit more disciplinary focused, one thing that I'm really fascinated by, it's not an area I know a huge amount about, but quantum computing. And the reason for that is partly because it's inherently interesting in its own right, but it also seems to open up a huge number of possibilities across the STEM disciplines.
What's your strategy or vision and plans for improving student experience and education?
So I think in the short term, a real key thing for me is about communication and listening and learning. So I think it's really vital that we make sure there's good opportunities for students to have their say and be heard, and staff who are involved in teaching have their say.
Yeah, so I guess I very much echo that. It's very easy, I think, to come in new to an environment and new to a university and say, oh, I've got all these wonderful ideas and it would be lovely, we should think about this and that. I think one of the great things is actually going around and meeting people, both students and staff, and listening to what's already happening. Because already just 2 months in, I'm hearing some really fantastic things that are going on. And looking to build on those, but then also hearing some of the challenges people have faced and things where people say, oh, I'd like this to work better, or it would be great if, and then picking up those conversations. One word I think would be lovely to see come in a little bit more is partnership. So we often talk about hearing from our students, and we certainly need that, and then we need to make sure that we're also keeping that going as a conversation, so that it becomes just part of naturally what we do.
So I think there's probably some messages which were already coming through quite loud and clear that we've picked up on already. So it's good to see there's some real concrete actions around those.
Absolutely. I think the data is there from things students have told us collectively here across the faculty for many years, that there are some aspects, particularly around assessment and feedback, where they feel that in some areas, not all, that things aren't working quite as they need to. And I think one of the interesting things around that is understanding what it is that we have tried and how we've talked to students about that and what we've heard in response, and see where we can start to make some rapid improvements down the line. It would be great just to feel that every student had an inherent sense of belonging to their course, to their department, to the faculty, and to King's.
So how can we involve students in this work, especially students maybe who aren't already involved? Because you have some students who are already very excited, very involved, but what about the students who maybe aren't involved, who aren't aware of this work? Like how are you reaching out to them?
So I think there's two aspects of that. One, I go back to the student voice. So those engaged students who are perhaps society reps or general student reps, how can we get those excited, engaged students to come up with some ideas and solutions for getting more people involved? Because I think they're really well placed. The other area that I think we can work on is making sure that the academic staff, so the staff who are working with you, the students, are fully aware of the opportunities and can make sure things are embedded in the curriculum, embedded in the opportunities that's happening on a day-by-day basis.
I think that it's a really interesting question about how we communicate with you as students, but also how we hear from you and how that keeps going in a productive way. I think it's going to require a range of different ways of interacting. So there will be things like the Student Reps Network and feeding in through that and making sure that that's working really well for you and that your reps know how to communicate with the wider student population and you know how to communicate with them. I think there'll be the need for both digital engagement, ways in which you're able to contact us with your ideas or your requests or your thoughts, but also a lot of in-person opportunities. I think we could do wonderful things to make sure that we are getting out and talking to you, for example, regular student forums that are open to students beyond just the student representatives who are already actively engaging with us through more formal structures. I'm quite keen to set up opportunities for Meet the Vice Dean, so that there are ways in which you can book to just come and see me and talk to me directly. You're very welcome to email me. Send me your suggestions. What would work for you? I'd really love to hear from you about the entirety of your experience.
What about students who maybe feel scared or anxious about bringing up things that they think, oh, this will be perceived negatively, people at the university, if my personal tutor finds out I'm saying this, it'll be perceived negatively. How do we make sure that students feel safe to share their ideas and opinions, whether positive or negative?
One solution is really trying to identify where trusted channels are. So it may be that a student, you may feel that you can't go and tell a lecturer in a room of 400 students, but you're comfortable talking to another student in another year group. Or in some cases you may have a really good relationship with your personal tutor. So we need to be aware that there are a range of places people can talk to. Sometimes it's useful to think about anonymous reporting approaches, although that can sometimes be challenging because if you want to delve into a bit more to look for solutions, it's then hard. I'd like to put that back to you as students. What would be helpful for you in order to communicate both the positive and the things where you think things could be better?
There are different things that you as students will want to say to staff at different times, and some of those things might be very personal to you about specific elements of your experience as a student that either have gone really well or haven't gone so well. And I've seen students in those situations, especially if they're raising concerns, that's where sometimes it can be a bit challenging. It can feel like there's a barrier, and maybe the anonymity, if you just want to raise a general concern, that can help. Or sometimes the opportunity to do this in a way that's guaranteed to be confidential, so you can go and speak to another member of staff. I think we can look to ensure that information about those channels are available to you.
Why in particular should students answer the NSS survey, and then also why in general should we answer surveys?
Yeah, sometimes we can feel kind of survey fatigued, every time you go out to a restaurant or go to go and see a performance, give your survey. So the NSS it's a national survey, so it's an opportunity for all final year students to give feedback across a range of quite well curated questions. We want to know that feedback so we can really understand what things we are doing well and what things we really want to be focusing our attentions and doing better at. So there's a numeric score which is helpful to amass lots of data if there's something which is college-wide and we need to be looking at a college-wide solution that can be drawn out. But it also gives that written responses, those text responses, which can often give more sort of detailed, nuanced understanding of how we can improve things. And those are taken really seriously.
I would say it's a relatively small thing. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes. It's not a complaint form. It's not there as a way to say, oh, I don't need to fill it in because I was fairly happy. It's for all experiences. It's good and bad, things that you liked, things that you felt could have gone better. You could put it all in there. Free text comments, absolutely incredibly valuable. And then you help us to bring it all together, and you're helping the future generations, and we constantly read and adjust in response to your feedback.
I'm hoping to pop by some of these NSS hubs if I'm online, so I'm hoping to sneak along to some of these in the next week or two.
Yeah,
so,
I went to one earlier today, and I popped along to chemistry to do a shout out, but the chemistry students, you're already filling it in great numbers, so well done, that's really good.
How can we bring more practical skills into education so students can gain practical, technical and soft skills relevant to the job market?
We're absolutely going to have to make sure that we do this and that we do it really well, because I think students are rightly seeing their education, and I'm sure many of you will understand this philosophy, as being not just about what you study in the books or in the lectures or in the labs. It's about setting you up with a set of skills that you are going to take with you through into the rest of your lives. And we've got a range of different things that we need to look at. We can embed skills directly in the curriculum, and some of this is happening already in really great ways. For example, in engineering they do wonderful things with professional skills development embedded in the programme. That lends itself to some disciplines more than others, but the opportunities are there actually to do it in all of our areas. And then there are other ways as well. There's making sure that we maximise the opportunities for students in extracurricular activities.
And one of the things I quite like being at the faculty level is identifying where things are working really well and looking at how we can share that good ideas.
Yeah.
So things which have struck me as really, really interesting about King's joining here. Say, for example, the Institute, the Entrepreneurship Institute, where we know there's a lot of NMES engagement. How do we ensure students know about that and have opportunities? And some of the project work that's going on, I think I heard about the other day, informatics had some really interesting fourth year projects where students were doing projects engaged with local communities. So we have got some great stuff going on.
And I think that one thing that we can think about is building on some of the really interesting work that careers have done, particularly led by students, some of our student ambassadors working with the careers service, to lead on events for developing skills for students alongside their programmes of study, so that they're getting that overall rounded experience of being at a university.
How are we thinking of embedding sustainability within the education of the faculty and within faculty life and student life?
Climate sustainability is a really important focus and high priority. And I think within NMES we're really uniquely placed for that. We have our Net Zero Centre and we have a lot of skills and a lot of expertise both in our research and also within our students and what our students are going to go on to be really contributing to this agenda.
In some departments and some programs there are more developed plans for embedding it, so I'm aware of things that the chemistry department's looking at, for example, about looking at greening their lab. As we move forward, it's going to be really important that we reference our obligations to society, both in terms of sustainability but also all sorts of other ways, as a core part of what we do. The drive coming through from Central College is clear, and I think we need to take stock and look at which parts of that fit within embedded parts of the curriculum, which parts are in addition, key skills development, and how that comes together as a whole.
So how can we benefit from the interdisciplinary in our faculty by increasing opportunities, bringing together different departments?
When you look across the suite of programs that we have, the departments that are there within NMES, the opportunities just jump out all over the place. So for physicists and chemists to work together, for informatics to work across the piece. And I'd love to see, as we move forward, how we can open up opportunities for interdisciplinary research projects for undergraduates. Lots of undergraduate programs will have projects available in years 3 and 4, the ways that we could explore bringing those together so people are working in interdisciplinary teams. And I'd love to think even beyond that, beyond the faculty, when you think about the opportunities around policy and how science and engineering interfaces with public policy and wider societal issues, the sustainability one being absolutely key.
So we've had our research centres at the faculty as being something which we've been developing and launching recently. So we have the Centre for the Physical Sciences of Life, so that is interdisciplinary across our faculty, interacting with quite a bit in terms of the health faculties, so that's that interface there. And then Net Zero, which I just mentioned, which again very much embedded within a lot of activity across our faculty, but interfacing with other faculties, interacting with other departments, things like geography and other areas. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for interaction, and the Net Zero recent interaction is with the business school, thinking about how we have some sustainable business. So lots of interest when it comes to research, and lots of enthusiasm from academic staff. Let me think, another example, I'll be popping on lots of different examples there. There's interaction between arts and sciences too from NMES. Now what I'm really excited about being part of a fantastic university such as King's is that we do research and education together, and they're embedded, and research is embedded in what we do as our education. So I'm very excited to see how having this emphasis on interdisciplinary research activity gets embedded in the education space.
The interdisciplinary side of things is actually one of the reasons why I chose King's, because I love your science gallery, and I actually met my current supervisor for my master's project when he was part of an exhibition at the science gallery. So there's some very cool stuff going on there.